I'm actually not going to use this stove, but I said to Jeff, I said, if you're going to pay for Philip to bring his cello over on another thing, you can fly my stove in. It was in my rider. How's everybody doing? Are we doing well? No, come on. Last week I did a speech at the Association of American Mime Artists, and they made more noise than you, so come on. Are we doing well? That is better. Yeah, we're all inspired. I have to say, though, whenever I come to do an event like this, I always kind of go through an up and down, because part of me is absolutely inspired by these incredible storytellers. And I would like just, not to single out one, but I would want to just mention Amelia, because we have all these experienced storytellers, and she came out and gave one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. So I want to give her another shout. She was fantastic. But at the same time, and you can hold up your hands and tell me if you feel the same, you're so inspired, and then you go, oh, but I'm such a worthless slug. Who else feels that? Because you see all these things, you feel like me. Because I just go, I cook for a living. It's not like Philip, and it's not these incredible things that people do, but then I was thinking, actually, cooking is an art form. I mean, it's a very different type of art form in the sense that for music and for art, the stuff that Jeff does, and for theatre, one of the signs of their success is its longevity. But with cooking, it's the absolute opposite. I want my art form to disappear as soon as possible. If it sat on the plate for years and years, I'd done something wrong. But one of the things I think it does have in common with all the art forms, and certainly what we're talking about here, it has this ability to nourish the soul as well as the body. Is there anybody here who doesn't like food? See? Silence. We all love food. So when Jeff asked me to come and tell a story, I kind of thought, well, what should I tell? So I want to tell you the story of the day that food saved my life. Now, you might think that's an odd thing, because a lot of people have said, in fact, someone said it to me last night, and Philip, when we were chatting this morning, he goes, you have a dream job. And I do. 3 weeks ago, Bobby Flay was cooking me food in his restaurant. Next week, I'm going to be hanging out with Alton Brown. In fact, just now, almost exactly just now, I received an email from Jeffrey Zakarian, the Iron Chef. We all know Jeffrey. He goes, if you get a chance, go to Caserta's Pizza in Providence. Is he right? So, when I look at my phone and I see the list of the people I'm connected with, I am very lucky. But it wasn't always like that, because 10 years ago, I was living a very comfortable life. I was living in London. I was running a book publishing company. I was being paid an enormous amount of money, and I was fulfilling my only life's object at that time, which was never to be more than 15 steps from a perfect martini. And then life conspired against me, as it can do. My mother died of leukemia, and Kate talked about cancer. Cancer doesn't just eat away at the person who suffers from it, it eats away at everybody who knows and loves them. And losing my mother at the age of 40-something just destroyed me. At the same time, and possibly because of what was going on, the business I was running was failing. It was dying. My world was caving in around me. And one day I was in my apartment in London, and I had a beautiful apartment. If you've ever seen Frasier, that was like my apartment in London. And I was standing on the balcony, looking down, and I had one foot up, and I was ready to jump. And it was quite ironic, in fact, because my balcony in London, my apartment in London, overlooks one of the most famous cemeteries in London, Bunhill Fields. They actually found some of Jack the Ripper's victims there. And I was getting ready, but I still remember this ironic thought. I was thinking, well, at least it's a cemetery, so there'll be no middleman. As I got ready to jump. But luckily, the people in the apartment below me started to cook. They were a Lebanese family. I never got to meet them. I never got to say thank you to them for saving my life. But the smells, everyone know Lebanese cooking, the smells of roasting meat came wafted up. And I just stopped in my tracks. And I always say, if I ever do an autobiography, it'll be called What Happened Then. I said I got more hungry than suicidal. So I went back in to cook. Isn't that great? I went back in and I decided to cook a dish that is our family's version of chicken soup. And what I thought I'd do is just share the recipe with you. Oh, I have to point over here. Is it not? Oh, there you go. We call it in our family now LSD, life-saving dal. And I went back in to my stove, and I poured the red lentils into the pan, and I did what my Indian grandmother had taught me to do. I started to stir and dry toast the lentils in the pan. And while I was doing that, there was nothing else I could do but just look around and think. And in front of me, I noticed all of my cookery books, and in the middle, there was a notebook. And I pulled out this notebook. And I was just glancing at it, and it's a notebook someone had given me when they'd sent me on one of those Tony Robbins courses. You know, Anthony Robbins, the tall guy who runs around a lot and whoops and self-help and all of that kind of stuff. Well, I'd listened to all these tapes, and there wasn't a lot I got out of that, because I'm not a whooper. Those who know me well will know I'm a strictly whoop-free zone. But one of the things I had got out of this is how to set goals. And I'd found this list of goals that I'd written down for everything I wanted to do when I turned 40. I'm now 52. And I realized I'd done them all. I'd run a marathon, which is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, still suffering from it. I'd had my teeth strained. I had what I call very British teeth. They look like an abandoned cemetery. They're all now. They're rather nice now. I'd had a suit made on Savile Row. Has anyone ever had a suit made? Anyone? I see some. So, well, when you have one made, I'm going to tell a story now. So, young people, please cover your ears, because it's rather rude, but no. When I had the suit made, I went online to read all about this on Savile Row, because it costs a lot of money. I wanted to find out all about it, do my research. And I found out that when you have a suit made, they measure your inside leg, but they also ask you which side you dress, which side your crown jewels go. And the reason they ask you that, apparently, is so they could put a bit of extra material. So I'm having myself measured, and there's this little old gentleman, he's down on his knees, got a head there. And so I looked down, and I said, while you're down there, I said, which probably is not the best thing to say to someone on his knees, because he's down like this. And he's looking up, and he's very close and personal. So I said, while you're down there, I said, address to the left. At which point he looked up directly at my tackle, and he said, I don't think it's going to matter very much, sir, do you? Which is probably the most polite way you can have someone tell you have a tiny penis ever. Anyway, now that we've settled that, Food Network personality has tiny cock. Now, at the bottom of that list were 4 words that Matt just shared with you, and they changed my life. They saved my life. And this dish saved my life. And I'd love some of you to photograph this recipe, see if you can make it and take it home with you, and email me and text me and go on Twitter, all those things. Those 4 words would go everywhere, eat everything. And they literally did that to me. And the next day, I went to the woman who owned the company I was running, and I quit. And I started a journey to go around the world. Again, Amelia talked about jumping out and taking a chance. I quit my job, and 4 weeks later, I was on Bondi Beach in Australia. And that was the beginning of this journey that's brought me here. I ended up traveling to 31 countries in the world, and I ended up writing a book. I had no intention to do any of those things. I thought I would end up back in London, standing on the streets with a sign saying, we'll drop trout for foie gras. But I didn't. I ended up writing this book, and on that journey, 31 countries around the world. I did everything from going on the Trans-Siberian Express to picking grapes in South Africa to going to the tea plantations in India. And at the end of that journey, I met my beautiful wife, Sybil, and she invited me to come to the United States. And that journey brought me here, and I became an American citizen. So as of a year and a half ago, I am now an American citizen. I'm one of you guys. So you can't get rid of me now. And I just completed a journey for that, which has come out in a new book called Fed, White, and Blue. And so during that journey, I asked Americans to share with me their food experiences. Because one of the things I truly believe about food and all art is that it has this ability to unify us. I was standing there while you were all sitting there listening to Philip. It was extraordinary. It elevates us. And food can do that. I was saying to Meredith earlier when we were taking a picture, food doesn't just nourish the body, it nourishes the soul. Cooking for me is something that brings me the most pleasure. Jeff is going to ask us all, what gives us the most pleasure? And I'll tell you now, feeding my wife. Hopefully gives her pleasure too. But food has this ability. So I'm a great believer in breaking bread with people. And one of the reasons that I'm standing here now is my wife and I sculpt out 4 weeks a year, every year, and we do this journey that's called Give Us a Bed, I'll Cook You Dinner. And we travel around the country, and we've just been doing it all over New England, where people invite us into their homes. And we've just come back from cooking on, we cooked at a dairy, Jasper Hills Farm up in Maine, in Vermont. We just came back from a glamping campsite in Ithaca. We're cooking tomorrow for 22 people from a wonderful organization here called the Business Innovation Factory. And then on Saturday, we're actually cooking for a charity for the Miriam Hospital. And people invite us into their houses. So I'm going to ask you, if you're interested in doing that, tweet us, come in touch with us when we make our next plans. Give us a bed, I'll cook you dinner. But one of the things I want to talk about is cooking for each other. And who's the cooks here? Hands up, all those people who just, look, everyone. Everyone loves to cook and everyone else loves to eat. So we've got the perfect combination. The cooking is something that we can all do. We don't all have the training to paint like Jeff can do. We don't all have the training to play music as Philip can do so beautifully, so magically. I'm going to remember that for a long, long time, particularly when he played Kashmir last night. It was sensational. But you can all cook for each other. Cook something for someone you love and share it with them. Invite people round. Again, we heard about doing favors for people. What says I love you more than putting a plate of food in front of someone and saying, that's from my soul to your soul? So I know now that we're going to go off and have lunch. So the two things I'm going to ask you to do is, one, don't just sit there and fill your stomachs, nourish your souls, and break bread with each other. One of the great things about the Give Us a Bed, I'll Cook You Dinner tour is that it means that we have met all kinds of different people of all kinds of different religions, all kinds of different politics, all kinds of different economic strata. And when you sit down and share a meal with them, there is nothing that can keep you apart. It is the most universal, unifying force in the world. Feed each other and love each other. Thank you very much.